What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Gaming Tag VR. Today I wanted to talk about 7 PSVR games that I think need to be remastered or at least ported across to the PlayStation VR2. This channel all started thanks to the original PSVR, and even though I ended up craving more games on other systems, I would still argue the PlayStation VR had some of the best catalogue of VR games of any platform. So I want to give you the reasons these games are deserving of a remaster, and how the developers can make use of PSVR2's new features such as headset haptics, eye tracking and the beautiful adaptive triggers. So let's dive right in, but before we go any further, if you're all about VR content, be sure to subscribe. If you want to be notified about my next video, click the bell icon, and if you enjoyed this video, drop a like. First on my list is Astrobot, a game that was first seen as a demo which wowed so many of us, and finally got released as a full game later on, with fantastic level design, interaction for the VR users such as headering balls with the characters in the game, smashing wooden blocks with your head, awesome music and AAA graphics. This made Astrobot somewhat of a PSVR icon to many gamers. It was widely praised by the press for its inventive level design, charming characters and smart use of the DualShock, and the inventive boss fights. The game was pretty much a standout title in the original PSVR and is still one of the best platformers in VR to this day. So thinking next gen, seeing this game in PSVR2's high resolution would be incredible, but it's the headset haptics that would really make this a #1 selling game all again. As I stated earlier, there was so much interaction between you and the game, and Astro, I can only imagine how cool it would be to actually feel these moments with the headset haptics. Since we can't track the DualSense 5 controller, we could instead have robotic PlayStation hands to do all the cool things that we did before, such as high-five Astro or throw in ninja stars to help Astro make his way through the level. For me, this is my #1 request for a remaster, and throughout this video I want you to add your own list and thoughts on the games you want to see remastered too. Number 2 is the Wipeout Omega Collection. Wipeout is known throughout the world as one of the best and fastest futuristic racers to ever grace PlayStation, and Wipeout Omega Collection, the VR version, didn't disappoint. With all the worries we see today with developers for motion sickness and comfort settings, London developer XDev gave us the ability to kick off any VR training wheels and do full-on barrel rolls and ship rotation that made you feel like you were actually inside the game for the very first time. The sense of speed is, to my mind, still unmatched, and the multiplayer was some of the most intense and explosive fun I've ever had in any racer. The way these developers brought Wipeout from a flat screen into VR makes me only crave what a true Mario Kart from Nintendo would be like, because it can be done, but for some reason it's just not happening. The game already looks great on PSVR, but with the PSVR2's high resolution, I believe it could look even better. I'd personally like to see the eye tracking used to lock on the weapons if you're firing a minigun, for example, actually using your eyes to aim it at your opponents. This game for me is still the best VR racer on any system. Fingers crossed this does happen for PlayStation VR2. Third on our list is Blood and Truth, a game that puts players right in the middle of an action-packed spy thriller, almost movie-like experience. The only thing that ever let it down was the point-to-point movement system. Now we have joysticks on the PSVR2 Move controllers. I would personally love to see this game get full locomotion. That would literally take this game to the next level. It really did have a very high production level even for the PSVR, and I believe with things like eye tracking, dynamic foveated rendering and headset haptic feedbacks where you can feel the bullets and the guns being shot, this could be a massive seller for PSVR2. Game number 4 is Rush of Blood. Simply known as one of the best horror-themed rail shooters in virtual reality. And while Switchback was a good sequel, but definitely not a better game, I can only imagine getting a re-release of Rush of Blood on PSVR2 to re-experience this game with the technologies of PlayStation VR2, such as the adaptive triggers, eye tracking, and headset haptics. For me personally, this is an absolute no-brainer, and while I do enjoy Switchback, it simply didn't have the heart-pounding replayability that Rush of Blood did. Game number 5 is Resident Evil 7, and still to this day stands as the best horror game I've played in virtual reality. Now don't get me wrong, with the release of PlayStation VR2, we got Resident Evil 8, and while some people still feel that is the best horror experience they've ever had, I feel that Resident Evil 8 is more of an action game. Resident Evil 7 was like a living nightmare, and I would simply love this game to get a remaster for PlayStation VR2. Recently, PSVR got a mod of Resident Evil 7, and to be honest, It was an absolutely incredible experience. I think we need this to happen sooner rather than later, because there's so many new VR users who have just experienced Resident Evil 8 and they feel like they know what horror is in VR, and Resident Evil 7 will definitely give them a shock.
Hello, planet Earth.
Number 6 on this list is Farpoint. This was a flagship game for the fantastic but underutilized PSVR aim controller. Since the now 23-year-old Move controllers had no joysticks, the aim controller felt like the saviour for every first-person shooter on PSVR, and Farpoint was a brilliant game to match the brilliant peripheral. Even now, people want an aim controller too for upcoming games like Firewall Ultra, but for me, Farpoint will always be the game that brought the aim controller to life and made it an unmissable addition to my PSVR collection. Farpoint gave us fantastic graphics and a truly beautiful but deadly science fiction world to explore. The opening level sees you crash on a planet and fight probably the biggest monster in any VR game so far, and it's pretty much an unforgettable experience. Developers Impulse Gear recently made a game called Arsenals to bring us an Overwatch style game to VR, but unfortunately it was not met with the best reception and to my knowledge struggles to have an active player base. I can only hope they go back to their roots and bring us a remaster or a sequel to Farpoint, because using the PSVR2 Sense controllers alongside a gun stock like the Cobra VR Vader 1 would be absolutely unmissable. And finally, game number 7 is PlayStation VR Worlds. One thing I've said since the launch of PSVR2 is the lack of tech demos we have, and PlayStation VR Worlds was exactly that, but the games were so replayable throughout the life of the system. As a reminder, PlayStation VR Worlds is a collection of VR experiences that were created specifically for the PSVR. You can experience street luge, being attacked by a massive shark while in a cage investigating a shipwreck, having a blowtorch held to your face by a London gangster, shooting some baddies on motorcycles in a moving van while using Uzis. Even the menu of PlayStation VR Worlds was fantastic. The list goes on, and I can only dream of re-experiencing these on the PSVR 2. Can't say this enough, the PSVR 2 resolution, the graphical grunt of PS5 and the haptics have made VR games look, and more importantly feel, more immersive than ever before. So there's my list of the top 7 games that I want to see ported from PSVR to PSVR 2. Let me know your list down in the comments below and your thoughts on this video in general. Remember to hit the like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.